Hey Rip City, this is DeAndre Ayton, and it's time to open the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blizzard fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 143 of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm Casey Holdahl, and the Trailblazers have broken a 5-game losing streak with back-to-back wins versus the Raptors and Wizards on Sunday and Monday nights. Though how much either one of those two teams were all that interested in winning is up for debate, which we can have that debate on this edition of The Briefcase. Portland's schedule about to get much more difficult here as they round out this 7-game homestand. It's been kind of an oddity, Portland's schedule this year, in which they play kind of some of the worst teams in the NBA, particularly in the Eastern Conference, and then end up playing the best teams in the Eastern Conference like 2 days later. So it's going to be a bit of a whiplash going from some of the competition they've seen earlier in the week to competition they're going to see later in the week. We will talk about that as well. Matisse Thybulle makes his return after almost a year away. We'll also talk a bit more about some of the injuries the Trailblazers are facing right now, and we'll get an update on the race for the play-in. It's kind of a non-update because it's pretty tough to tell which one of the three teams that's in the conversation for that last spot is going to come out of it, but we'll do our best to kind of figure it out on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, as I mentioned, after losing 5 straight, the Trailblazers got back onto the winning side of things this weekend with back-to-back wins versus two of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. First off being the Toronto Raptors. Trailblazers besting the Raptors on Sunday, 105-102, Sunday afternoon at Moda Center. In a game that, I don't really know what to take away from it if you're the Trailblazers. On one hand, the Raptors led by as many as 16 points in the first quarter and as many as 15 points in the second quarter. Blazers do get their act together a bit in the second half. Anthony scores 12 points in the fourth quarter to help the Trailblazers outscore Toronto by 8 in the fourth to get the win. But the kind of the rub there is that they decided to sit Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and Jamal Sneed, 3 of the 5 players that they started in that game for the majority of the fourth quarter. Leading one to question how interested they were in winning that game. I mean, it's pretty egregious. So while, you got the win, you feel good about getting the win if you're the Trailblazers. I don't know. Like, you played a team that didn't seem like they were really trying to win in the fourth quarter, and that's not necessarily a great thing for anybody, be the fans in the stadium, be the either team. You'd like to see teams go out there and try their God's honest best to win games. And I just don't know that you can necessarily say that, particularly when you watch the fourth quarter of that Raptor game. But the Blazers were able to get it to break that 5-game losing streak. So congratulations for that. Anthony Simons, 22 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 rebound in 32 minutes. Toumani Camara, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 35 minutes. Very nice night for Toumani in that one. Deni Avdija, 19 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 1 steal in 33 minutes. Shaedon Sharpe, 17 points, 4 rebounds versus many of his countrymen, or at least the team from the country he's from, being Canada. I'm guessing we maybe have more Canadians on the Blazers than they do on the Raptors. In fact, 14 rebounds for Donovan Clingan in 30 minutes in that game. Duop Reath also have 9 points and 5 rebounds as well. I feel like we've been getting really good minutes from Duop as of late. Obviously, no DeAndre Ayton, as we'll talk about here in a minute. Haven't had Robert Williams III either. And Jabari Walker has been out after getting concussed by Karl Anthony Towns on a dirty elbow. So WAP is getting thrown into action after not playing a whole lot as of late, and it's doing a very nice job. So shout out to you, WAP. So the Blazers end up winning that game, run it back the next night on Monday versus the Washington Wizards, another team at the bottom of standings in the Eastern Conference. This time, Trailblazers take care of business basically from start to finish. 112-97 win on Monday night. Again, a little bit closer in the first half than the game versus the Raptors. Back and forth first quarter. Blazers kind of end up taking control towards the end of the second quarter. I think they went on a kind of a little mini run. Ended up, I think, taking a 10-point lead into the second half. And then they go up by 24 points in the second half and then coast to the 15-point victory. Once again, though, you had a team in the Wizards that didn't play many of the players that they started, many of their best players after the first initial minutes of the game. Chris Middleton and Jordan Poole only ended up playing 10 minutes in that game. They both started in that game. Kaishan George only ended up playing 19 minutes in that game. Maybe they're injured. Maybe, they got minutes restrictions. I don't know. But when you start guys and then you don't end up playing them in the second half, that seems kind of weird to me. If you're trying to win basketball games, at least. I know the NBA did just end up finding some teams for sitting players. The Utah Jazz got fined for sitting Lauri Markkanen, who is a star player by their. I mean, he is. I'm not doing that as in like I don't think he is. They have a rule in the NBA now that you can't sit star players for certain games or for certain reasons, and that there is like a definition they use, like if you made an all-star game in X amount of time or an all NBA team. I don't even know what it is, but like it's kind of weird terminology that the NBA uses to be like, well, if you have a star, he has to play an X number of games. It just seems like a weird way to define it. But either way, the NBA has been finding teams lately for sitting players when they feel like they could otherwise play. And so as a way to get around that, you assume that teams are playing those players, but then not playing them in the second half or in the fourth quarter of games, which, I mean, that's what the situation with the NBA's draft lottery system puts teams in. I mean, it's a perverse incentives system where you either have teams playing players early and then sitting them in the second half, or just not playing players at all, as we've seen other teams do as well. For the most part, you can't really fault teams for doing that. They're just trying to do the thing that they feel like is going to put their team in the best position to become a better team in the future. But again, it's just not especially fun to watch. 30 points on 10 of 17 shooting from the field, 5 of 11 shooting from three, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, to go with 2 assists and a rebound for Anthony Simons in just 23 minutes. 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 25 minutes for Shaedon Sharpe. 15 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal, and a block for Dwop Reith. Shout out to you, Dwop, as I mentioned, getting some good minutes out of him right now. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists for Deni Avdija. Chris Murray getting the start in place of Toumani Camara. 5 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists for Chris in nearly 37 minutes. And Donovan Clingan, 11 points, 13 rebounds for the double-double to go with 2 assists in 25 minutes. You also had Scoot Henderson with 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in 31 minutes. Well, while some teams might do the things they feel like they have to do in order to give themselves the best chance to get up-and-coming players, you can do what you need to do to get to Spirit Mountain Casino to experience some of country's best and brightest up-and-coming stars at the Up-and-Coming Country Show at Spirit Mountain Casino on April 19th, featuring John Morgan with Abby Anderson and Brandon Davis. You won't want to miss these up-and-coming country acts. Tickets start at just $35 and are on sale now. Spirit Mountain Casino on Highway 18 in Grand Ronde is where it takes place. Spirit Mountain Casino, elevate your game. Well, after almost a year away with various injuries, Matisse Thybulle finally able to return to the court on Sunday's game versus the Raptors. Great to see from Matisse. He's been working hard. He had a really fun discussion with him at practice last week about kind of the situation he's been in and not being able to play basketball and how difficult that's been and how difficult the rehab process has been, and for a number of reasons. So Matisse finally getting back out there versus the Raptors and having himself a great game, immediately gets a steal, and then he blocks what could have been a game-tying three-pointer in that game versus the Raptors. Though with the way the Raptors played in the fourth quarter, who's to say that they would have wanted that game to go to overtime? But either way, Matisse made sure that didn't happen by getting that block. Matisse, an expert at blocking three-pointers. And then he comes out and has another great game versus the Wizards the next night, particularly with Toumani Camara sitting out that game. Gave Matisse an opportunity to play a little bit more. Loved what we saw out of him. A couple of, again, three-point blocks. I think he had 5 steals in the game. Just a really nice, really glad for Matisse. He's able to finally get back out there and play. I know that's been something that's been weighing on him. And, it's understandable. Like, you're a basketball player. You want to play basketball. It's something you've put a lot of time and effort and work into. And then you don't get to do it for a really long time, and you get close to coming back. Matisse was within a couple of days of returning back in November, ends up having a grade 2, grade 3 ankle sprain. I think they initially said it was a grade 2. I think Matisse feels like it was a grade 3. Either way, it kept him out for a couple months. I didn't actually see it myself, but I heard from multiple people being like, that is the grossest ankle sprain I've ever seen in my life. Supposedly it just swelled up like crazy. But either way, that's behind him now. He's healthy. He's able to play. He's been doing a great job. So Matisse Thybulle, welcome back. And here's to Matisse getting to play strong here for the last month of the season. Again, something that, obviously the Blazers in the play-in, the race for that is something to pay attention to. But seeing kind of some of the guys who haven't been able to play a whole lot getting an opportunity. I have a guy like Matisse, a guy like Wop, both getting to play some minutes now, and it's great for them, and it's fun to watch too. Like the Blazers do kind of feel like they're starting to settle in on a rotation a little bit here, but it's cool to be able to see some guys who haven't been able to play a whole lot this season get some opportunities here late in the season. So shout out to you, Matisse, and welcome back. Another injury news: Jabari Walker, as I mentioned, is in the concussion protocol. I think the game on Monday was the first time he was back in the building since catching that elbow from Karl Anthony Towns in the Knicks game, which was not deemed inappropriate contact, oddly enough. Go figure. So he's going to be out here, I'm guessing, for another couple games. But and I saw him after the game where he got concussed, and he would very obviously had a concussion. Saw him at the game on Monday night, just in the locker room, looked much better, looked like he wasn't having any symptoms. So hopefully Jabari able to get back out there soon. DeAndre Ayton still sidelined with that left calf strain. At this point in time, with a little less than a month left in the season, not sure if we're going to see DeAndre again. It'd be nice if he was able to get back out there. It's great to see Donovan Clingan get these minutes. I think that's been an incredibly important part of his growth is to kind of play through some things while he has been kind of the only healthy, quote unquote, center on the team. But it'd be nice to get DeAndre out there. Same with Robert Williams III. He had missed some games, didn't go on that last long road trip, comes back, is available, doesn't end up playing, and the game is available, and then has been on the inactive list for the last couple games. So not entirely sure what's going on there. He's being listed as being out, I believe, with knee soreness. Same with Jeremy Grant as well, kind of in and out of that lineup for Jeremy. So not sure exactly what his status is going to be for the rest of this homestand. Same with Robert Williams. It sounds like maybe Robert's going to get back out there. Chauncey had mentioned that, team had a kind of a hard practice, and, he was maybe experiencing a little discomfort after that, which, you got to be really careful when it comes to Rob. Like, I mean, you got to be careful with every player, but especially with a guy like Rob with his injury history, I don't think you can really take any chances, particularly this time of the season, unless he's completely and healthy, 100% ready to go. So I think maybe his status is being reflected in that. So not sure about Robert. Jeremy, I imagine we'll probably see again sometime this season. I imagine that's probably kind of a management thing for that right knee soreness. I imagine he'll probably play some games and then maybe sit some games just to make sure that's nothing long term. That's kind of what ended up happening with Matisse's injury too, by the way, last year, is that he was kind of in and out, in and out. Finally, they decide, hey, it's probably time to sit it out, but then that kind of spirals and into different injuries. So, you do need to be careful with these things. And, like there's always assumption that when guys are sitting this time of year that they're doing it on purpose. Guys still get injured this time of year, folks. And, and like as I just get done talking about kind of other teams maybe not trying as hard as they could, like injuries are legitimate. Guys are not able to play for one reason or another. Like I'm not discounting that. It's when you play guys and then you don't play them. That's when you kind of start to wonder a little bit. So these guys that haven't been playing for the Blazers, I think, are actually injured. And then Tamani hits the injury report in the game versus the Wizards. Does not play versus the Wizards because of right calf soreness. He's been a little bit sick lately too, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the idea there is just kind of give him a little bit of time off and let him kind of get back into the swing of things a little bit. Well, while some of the teams the Blazers have been playing lately might not be trying all their hardest to win games, the Blazers still are because they want to get into that play-in spot. They're 3 games back from that last play-in spot as of right now with 13 games to play. As I mentioned, Blazers are in 12th, 3 games back from the Mavericks in 10th, 2 games back from the Suns in 11th, 13 games left to go. The Suns are 5-5, the Blazers are 4-6, and the Mavs are 2-8 in their last 10 games. So none of the teams really separating themselves there. The Mavs falling off a bit due to injury, but it seems like they're also still very much trying to get to that play-in spot, trying to get Anthony Davis back out there, at least according to reports. I think at this point in time, kind of the trade and how things have gone since then, feels to me like maybe there's a feeling like if we don't make the play-in, it's going to look even worse than it already does. Sorry, guys. I don't think you're going to be able to shake that off either way. But it seems like they're still trying to play that thing out and hopefully trying to get that 10th seed. Blazers also there trying to get it. Also the Suns. So the Blazers at this point, basically, it's not good enough for them to just pass the Mavs, which I think they probably have a pretty good chance of doing. If Anthony Davis doesn't come back, they're getting to the point where they're really thin in a lot of the rotations. They do have the easiest schedule of the 3 teams who are still fighting for that 10th spot. Mavs next 5 games are at Pacers versus Pistons, at Nets, at Knicks, and at Magic. Trailblazers next 5 games, really difficult stretch for the Trailblazers. Grizzlies, Nuggets, Celtics, Cavs, all at home before facing the Kings on the road to start a 5-game road trip. Suns, Not exactly a cakewalk either. Bulls, Cavs, Bucks, Celtics, and at Timberwolves. So, you got the Mavericks, who have the easiest schedule, but they're having the most issue with their roster in terms of injuries. You got the Suns, who have the most talent, but a pretty difficult stretch of games here to finish out the season. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't come together this year for the Suns. And then you got the Blazers, who, are playing some decent basketball, are mostly healthy, but don't have a win versus a team with a winning record since the first week of February and are going up into a stretch of games now where they're playing a lot of really good teams. So it's a bit tough to tell how that's going to shake out, other than to say, I feel like at this point, the only thing I can say real confidently is that it seems like it's probably going to go until the last week of the season. Maybe if the Mavs go on a run, then that probably sews it up pretty quick, though that seems fairly unlikely. Same with the Suns, like none of the three teams that are in that spot for the 10th have really like had a stretch as of late where they're playing really good basketball. The Blazers had a bit of a stretch like that about a month ago, you know, have won the games that they're supposed to win against teams below them in the standings or around them in the standings, but the teams with winning records that are above them haven't had a whole lot of success winning those games. So, I mean, they did come close versus the Knicks, but still didn't get it, lost in overtime. So, even to say that like we'll have a better sense at the end of this homestand, I I just don't think that's probably going to be true because it just doesn't seem like any one of these teams has really kind of taken the mantle and run with it. So, if I think it's really hard to handicap at this point. Like, it just part of me feels like it's like, well, the Suns have the best roster, or at least the most talent, so it'll probably be them. But again, like they just don't seem like they got the juice to get it done. If Anthony Davis comes back, does that send the Mavs? Does that give them enough to kind of get some wins versus these teams? It sounds like he did a rehab stint with the Stars, I believe, is there, whatever the Dallas G League team is, which would lead you to believe that he's probably going to be coming back soon, assuming those rehab stints went okay. So I don't know. Maybe getting Anthony Davis back and motivated is enough to get the Mavs to hold on to that 10th spot, even though they've only won two of their last 10 games. We'll see. If the Blazers are able to get guys like DeAndre back, maybe that kind of gives them a chance to win some of these games that they've otherwise been losing against teams within records. I don't know that necessarily we're going to see that anytime soon. So again, just hard to figure out which one of those teams is going to be the one to come out. And I guess you do got to mention the Spurs here too. Spurs feel like they've pretty much pulled the cord as well, but they are only, I think, a half game back behind the Blazers. So if we're going to say the Blazers are in the conversation 3 games back with 13 to go, I guess you got to say the same thing of the Spurs as well. They don't seem as motivated as the Blazers to get into that 10th spot, and that's the thing too. Like you talk to the Blazers players and coaches, like they want to get into 10th. Like they want to, and they're players. Like it's understandable. They feel like if they get there, to give themselves a chance to get into the postseason. Like that's what players want. Like teams, like from a front office perspective, might have kind of goals, but I mean, players want to win when they're out there, and if they feel like they're put in the best position to win, they're going to go out there and try their best. So. We'll see how this last month of the season shakes out. You look at all three of the Mavs, the Suns, and the Blazers. I don't really know that you can pick one of those teams out and say that this is going to be the team that feels like they're about ready to go on a run. It feels like they're all kind of about playing the same style of basketball, the same kind of level of basketball right now. And so it's really going to come down to, I think, some of the opponents and whether or not some of the other teams are able to get healthy. So, we'll continue to update at least once a week here on the briefcase. But not a whole lot to say about that race other than it continues, and no team has really kind of jumped into the spot where you feel confident saying that they're going to be the team that actually gets there. Maybe that'll happen sometime in the next week or two. I'm a little skeptical of that, so we'll just have to stay tuned. Finally, we haven't checked in our betting on the Blazers segment in a little bit. So after the Blazers did surpass their over as they did a while ago, Trailblazers now have 30 wins too, by the way. So if you took maybe some of the additional props in terms of wins, maybe maybe you're still around on that one. But congratulations to Trailblazers to get to 30 wins. But in terms of the betting markets, Trailblazers are now 39, 29, and 1 versus the spread this season after covering in 3 of their last 4 games. They covered as 6.5-point favorites versus the Wizards, where they won by 15. There were 4-point dogs to the Knicks and ended up losing that game by 1 in overtime. And there were 12-point dogs to the Warriors, ended up losing that game by 10. However, the one game in their last 4 that they did not cover, one of those things. The Blazers, as home favorites, just have not really performed very well. They were able to get the win versus the Wizards. They got the win, but weren't able to beat the spread versus the Raptors. They were 7-point favorites versus the Raptors and failed to cover when they won only by 3, though. Again, when you're down by 16 points in the first quarter, winning the game is enough. You don't need to cover at that point in time. The Trailblazers, if they had lost that game, again, like, does that take them out of the race for the play-in? It wouldn't help, but I don't think it would necessarily negated them from it, because again, none of the other teams have really taken on, have really gone on a run either. So I don't think that, it's good they got the win. Would have been nice if they could have covered, but either way, Blazers have now covered in 10 more games than they have not covered this season, which, from a betting perspective, that's pretty good. That's pretty good business. So if you've been betting on the Blazers to cover the spread this season, you've been doing very good. So congratulations to you. That is fantastic. I'm happy for all of you. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thanks so much for joining me, as always. Be back later on this week with yet another edition. Will we have more clarity about the play-in? Probably not. But if the Trailblazers are able to come in and get some wins at the end of this 7-game homestand versus some very good teams, at that point in time, I think you could probably start to maybe make some extrapolations about which team might be able to jump into that spot. If the Blazers are able to even go, 500 versus the next couple of games here on this homestand as they wrap up this homestand, then I think you feel really good about their chances. If not, then I think, you still basically have to hope that some of the other teams around you are going to be losing games, because Portland's schedule here is pretty difficult. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, we will talk again soon. I am Casey Holdahl. You have been watching The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Go Blazers.